are you romantic today?
I feel like the red power color was needed. And yeah, I don't know. Lady in red.
You look beautiful.
Thanks. I I don't know what I'm feeling today, but this whole full moon, because it came in a few hours ago.
Hmm.
I'm just like, I do need to like ground a bit in this energy. So I know probably like after we're done, I'm probably gonna take my shoes off and just put my feet like on the grass. Just get my feet in there. I was
Have you
like,
lost weight?
I might have, it might be fluctuating. I mean, between like the stuff that happened here
Hmm.
and just kind of like back and forth and getting ready for the fair, I was just like, okay, I know I'm supposed to eat. So, as I was running on Red Bull and coffee and making sure things were energetically right because I didn't want to put all like my, stuff there and somebody buy
No,
it.
I mean, I just asked because of like, since there is a full moon in Capricorn that's going to happen, like, it's going to be touching like your rising sign. So I was like, well, I know that the moon represents a sense of fullness, but like, I'm like, it seemed like the opposite effect because it's a Saturn moon. So I'm like, girl, like, you look like you lost weight today. Not that it's like a bad thing or a good thing, but I'm just like, your energy seems different. It doesn't seem so big. It seems very like,
Very Capricorn-esque, like, hey, let's get down to business. But like at the same time, you're like, you look so beautiful. Because red is my color. Red is my
well,
mother's color. And get it, is rebirth. That's actually I do interpret red as 5 color for rebirth.
mhm,
It's the symbolism for life and death. So when you think of bloodline, life, blood is
mhm.
is the lifeline. So I'm wearing the life color today.
I feel like my getup for the day is very inspired by the Fae because I feel very psychedelic, just very magical, and like I want to dip into that. Like again, I even have like things around me, like this old candle holder
Oh,
that I
that's
wish I've been
beautiful.
right.
I love that. I love the colors. Oh yeah.
So I have this, and I kind of just like leave it outside, and in my head, I'm capturing the attention of the Fae because I mean, this reminds me of the Fae. Um, Yellow, golden light, very. I don't know. I guess we're just starting the subject at the moment. I dressed up because I mean, I'm not really dressing up. It's my best like fake sort of attire, so to speak, for the day. But you look absolutely gorgeous in red.
I love you. Thank you. And you always look gorgeous yourself. Doll. Doll.
I just think it's fascinating that you dress up as not necessarily dressed up as, but like, red is your mother's color, and she is Queen of the Fae.
Morgan Le Fay. Hey, hey, hey.
Mm-hmm.
Which I still need to get very well versed with her stories. And but yeah. But anyway, hi
Mm-hmm.
everybody, welcome.
It's been a long time. Also, how's everyone doing with the retrogrades? Because they really kicked my butt.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you got to think about it too. Maybe we kind of need to tell everybody like where we have been because we are actually recording the day before this is going to get posted.
Mm-hmm.
Omar and I have We talk on the phone, but we really haven't been talking as much because the energies from since the solar eclipse and the new moon from what was it, a couple weeks ago?
Mhm.
Everybody was feeling that shift. So I think for me personally, a lot of things were closing out. A lot of that strength, to me, warrior-like behavior needed to come out, no matter how painful it was. I needed to establish a boundary for my sanity. But I noticed a lot of either things were kind of coming back in to close out chapters, and I'm starting to notice like a pattern with certain friends that I've talked to and people that if they haven't closed out yet, it's kind of like our guides or whoever is getting us down this path of whatever journey we're supposed to be going through. They're kind of putting these things in our face to kind of close out those chapters and being like, get rid of this stuff. Because I did mention to a friend today that, and especially even with retrograde, we were supposed to reflect. Now it's gone direct, and everybody's just like, okay, now it's full moon energy. So what now? And it's like, guys, we still have the shadow of it. And so we're still reflecting of what's working and what's not working and what we need to get rid of. Because we're already like halfway down through the year. And my advice was like, look, do you still want to carry that baggage with you into the new year? We got 6 months to try to not get it perfect, but at least try to like kind of get rid of the stuff that's just not working for us and not carry it into another year, because we've had like a lot of a year and a half of uncertainty, and we're just like, okay, we sat, we reflected, and we know what's not working for us, and we're still kind of getting better at it. So why are we going to carry that into next year? I'm already thinking ahead already. So I don't know.
As a Capricorn would though, I get it. I mean, I feel like this retrograde has affected me in a way where it was, it was between the binaries of Gemini and Sagittarius, and it was very like, okay, well, I'm a Gemini sun and Gwen is a Gemini moon, but not only was it affecting all the like just Gemini in particular and Sagittarius, and you have some heavy Sagittarius placements as well. It affected the whole mutable four, which was Virgo, Gemini, Pisces, Sagittarius, and I was like, all right, so I'm not safe. I think I'm fine. Like I'm pretty much like, in tune as to what I feel like I need to do. But then as soon as the eclipse happened and it affected like my sun sign, which is like, I guess my ego, I felt like, am I being myself or am I supposed to do something else? Because this isn't me. And I guess it's really just like a moment of like taking a step back and not necessarily placing such a high focus on what I'm supposed to do, but really try to find the internal work or slash, shadow work of, we went through a very traumatic year. We're getting out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, how are we like effectively dealing with these changes? And are we changing as we have gone through the shifts ourselves? I mean, especially with mutable signs. Mutable signs are very changeable. We adapt to the flow. We can go with the flow. But what happens when like retrograde in Gemini, North Node in Gemini, the eclipses in the times of Gemini and Sagittarius, we're the ones that really know how to go with the flow. But it really felt like stepping into the circus. And I was like, okay, I've had enough of these like tricks and clowneries because I have not felt myself. My birthday happened, and then after my birthday, retrograde. After my birthday, everything went to like a tumble, and I was like, okay. I thought I had all of the like the thoughts and the energy to move forward into this new like stage of life. I just turned 30, and I started thinking about like, yay! I started thinking about how, yeah, no, something's got to change here. I can't be the same person I was. And I guess it helped me in a way to not only isolate myself, but like truly look at the shadow parts of myself that I'm willing to release coming this like full moon in Capricorn. And Capricorn's very, it brings a lot of stability. It's, I mean, I know it's Cancer season, but I have caught myself getting nostalgic and sort of just like, you know, emotional over the things of the past. And I'm like, wait, why are we getting emotional over things of the past when we're clearly not even looking back? Do I want to look back to the past 2020? No. I rest in peace to who I used to be, rest in peace to who that person was in order to for them to survive. And now I'm like, all right, I guess it's time for an upgrade. It's time to like redo my emotional responses to things, which again, I have a Cancer Venus. I'm always like, but remember the past. And now I'm like, let's not remember the past. Let's not do that. Let's move forward. Because I mean, Pluto just went retrograde. And I'm like, I think that Pluto and Capricorn really taught us was, do you want to die or do you want to live? And I'm like, bitch, I want to live. I don't want to die here. Not like this.
Well, I do have to say, as much as I always delve like as my Capricorn self for improvement, I'm always like there in that gray area where I'm just like, I always want to transform. So without being reborn, you know, I have to die somehow. But what am I dying from? So I still have to kind of go back into the past. Not that I really want to, but sometimes some scenarios or things that had been popping up, like I was saying, things that were repeating, I'm like, oh, you again, you know, because it's like it shape shifted into something else. And I'm like, I thought I got rid of you. And it's like, no, I'm here. And I'm like, okay, so how do I want to handle you? What do I need to look at? And so when I actually sit down and I look at it, it's like, oh, I didn't really think about that. Granted, I didn't clear a whole bunch of stuff. I'm still processing it, and still trying to learn the lesson. Yes, am I learning the lesson that is for that time period? Absolutely. But yeah, it's I kind of feel like it is shape shifting into something else for my own understanding. I'm never going to 100% get it until like
Yes.
I'm out, like from this physical body. So yeah, it's always the dying and rebirth. I always look at it like a phoenix rising from the ashes. So that's how I always want to come back. Just, you know, very like, wah! Just wah!
Very just like, oh, look, she's got new pairs of wings, guys.
Yeah.
Y'all thought you knew me.
Yeah. Yeah. I have big black pro wings. You just can't see them.
I just, in my head, I imagine like these big, like Victoria's Secret angel, like wings that are just like, all right, come on now. Wow.
We
Come
will
through,
get,
Mama.
we'll get in the topic of the pages after this, but I had to make a comment. I was watching one of the girls I follow who does like the collective like tarot readings for like groups 1 through 4, and she has like these like zodiac die, and she put it, she's like, and these are for my Capricorn people. She's like, have you ever noticed how like the Capricorn sign looks like the Victoria's Secret sign? Like yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Well, you know, it is one iconic moment that I remember. I know I'm a little biased, but I remember Gaga did the Victoria's Secret show, and she like left the stage with like these like retractable wings that came out, and she just started like it was a guitar that was like making all these riffs and everything. She's like louder, 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 and I'm like, that's Gwen just being like, I came out of the cave. Sound out the trumpets. She came out of the hole. She's coming for everyone. Well, not necessarily coming, but she's reintroducing herself again.
Very much so. Please allow me to introduce myself. Yes.
Because in my head, whenever I transform, I'm like, I'm sorry, I have a different vision now. It's a different era. Like, I guess in my head, it's more like a. Think of the ways that, like, for instance, Gemini, Kanye West. I'd hate to bring up a conversation. I appreciate his artistry, but every single album, every single, like, I guess, facet of himself has been different and never
Yes.
been done before. So I guess when I sort of come out of this transformative place, I'm like, oh, it's still me, but it's me with the funny hat this time. And the funny hat is my gimmick this time.
So funny hats, gnomes, fae. Yes.
All things
No.
magical.
All things
Thumbelina.
magical. Thumbelina, Fern Gully, Omar. We talked yesterday, and I wanted to say I did talk to him about it. We did have a few fans of this podcast, lovely friends, lovely fans. They gave us some topics that we're going to cover, and we really did kind of go down the rabbit hole yesterday too, where we're just like, these sound so interesting. Like, what do we do? But I was telling Omar the last episode we did past lives because that's very much kind of like where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Omar has been kind of getting like intrigue with the fairies or fae, which is why he was talking about like his shirts and having like all that energy. And so he and I have kind of gotten into topic, and I did tell him during one of the fairs locally, I had made a fae piece to connect with the fae. It was a necklace, and it's got herbs inside of it. And so when I did the offering and the ritual for it, I left milk and honey. And he asked me like how often I work with them, which I don't, because the last time I did, and when I did that, I had something go missing that was nice and shiny. So I'm starting to get back up with them again, but again, it's knowing how to respect them. But he did send me a YouTube video. I was in the middle of watching it, but Faye is very much attached with what I'm learning as far as the Celtic culture. And I thought it was very fascinating about the history of the Fae in that video. But I did want you to talk about your experience and what's been going on and what you've been doing, like what the Fae people have been doing.
So it's been a very magical, although it's been like complete and utter chaos and like, I guess my internal dialogue life where I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, oh, I'm confused. And like confusion, Gemini does confusion. We love confusing people.
We do love confusion.
I love just doing it just for the fuck of it. But when you're confused, you're like, wait, that's not the rule of the game. You're supposed to be confused, not me. I know the rules. I can change them. So in this time, I've taken a step back from like just being social, and I haven't been feeling myself as much as like I want to be. So recently, I don't usually smoke weed, but during the series of eclipses and like the retrograde, I felt like I don't know why I'm panicked. I want to calm down. Maybe if I can find some sort of like mild psychedelic, i.e. marijuana, I might just chill for a bit. And so I have these magical oils from Anne. So I have like so many. I was gifted them for my birthday and I absolutely love them so much. So one particular night I was like, you know what? I'm going to set myself up to have a very magical experience because, I do things for myself, but I have a boyfriend and I haven't been alone. So I was like, I'm going to set it up for me and romance myself in the most stoner way possible. I mean, so I went to Target, got some snacks, came home, took a shower. After that shower, I anointed myself with the Divine Fairy Site oil. Forgot about it, didn't even remember that I put it on. I go outside in my patio to smoke, and I have my earphones on. I'm having a good old time listening to music. I'm like actually like happy. I'm revisiting an album I've been listening to like the longest time. And I just remembering like joy again, just for that moment, just for a little escape. And as I was there, I kept seeing things like shift around me. And I was like, I don't think I'm alone right now. My dogs are inside, but like, I think I think there's someone around. So I was like, all right, cool, cool, cool. Like I'm probably just high, right? So I use the restroom, I come back, and I'm like, where's my lighter? Pretty sure I had my lighter here somewhere. Don't know where it is. And I'm like, you know what? I'm in an altered state of mind. I must have misplaced it. But no, it was outside. I remember that. Because I remember I was like, you know what? Could this be the Fae? Because at some point I would see like the curtains of the curtains that are right next to the sliding door to go outside were like shifting. And I was like, okay, if I pretend like I don't see them and I just stay in a meditative state of mind where I pretend like nothing's around me, I'm fine, will they come show themselves? And so I was like, you know what? I'm in an altered state of mind. Why don't I bring an old set of keys that I have that a friend gave me from an old apartment, left them out there? And I was like, maybe if it is you guys, then maybe we can have some sort of communication here. I've never formally introduced myself. I started to, and then this morning they left me a small little blue spotted egg, and I felt like that was confirmation that like, yeah, no, we have been around you. We're here.
Mm-hmm.
And it just increased my curiosity to try to find out like more about them, because again, like, they're happy people, or not people in general. They're not human, but they are of the divine sort of light being network. And what I find that they kind of tend to be, they're very, very like mischievous, kind of remind me of Hermes in a way, where they're just like tricksters, but at the same time they mean well. I haven't gone to the furthest extent of like, done some heavy work with them, because again, like when I was in the altered state of mind, I was like, I'm not usually paranoid, but like, what the fuck? What's going on here? Like, no, and this is where it gets really interesting. I have like these little lanterns outside, right? On the border of like the backyard. At some point they just turned on. So I was like, yep, they're fucking around. Now they know that I'm like, I can see whether, that they're clearly around me. But I mean, this is not my first time communing with the Fae. The first time I communed with the Fae was 2 years ago. It's gonna sound really embarrassing, okay? But I took a trip down the rabbit hole, and I decided to listen to Madonna's Madam X album, because I felt like it was inspired by Portugal, and it was inspired by like, Latin influences, and it was just a different kind of album. And I'm not saying I'm like a diehard fan of Madonna or anything, but like it was different. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna listen to it. I want to put myself in that state of mind and really take myself there. And as I was there, like I got up to go outside, and I was like, I need to be outside. I want to see what's outside. And I had no familiarity with the Fae or anything magical 2 years ago. I mean, I understood that they were, people, but like never to this close encounter like I had like this past week. But they did, when I came back inside my house, they did come inside my room, and I felt like I saw like a whole bunch of little gnome people, and they were like, yay, oh my god, hey, it's the party, like, oh my god. And then they just told me like, you have to go outside, come outside. And I was like, oh, okay, let me just go outside. I went outside, and like, look at the sky. And it was as if like there was a crack in the ceiling, and there was no ceiling to the sky. And it just opened up, and they were just like rejoicing, and they were so happy. And then I couldn't start to think, like, again, given the topic of Fae, what they're about, how they're like, because my experiences with them have been very like quiet, but also just like, again, taking psychedelics has opened up that portal, being like, I asked them, it's so interesting that I can see you guys. Like, I've never seen you guys before. Who are you guys? You guys make a lot of fun. They're like, oh no, we're a lot of fun, but like that, you don't have to worry about that right now. Like, look, just listen to the music and like look at everything. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Didn't have an encounter with them until recently. And I was like, okay, you're obviously around, and it's been a long time since we've spoken, but I would like to continue that line of communication just because like I have found a newfound like appreciation for them because of their folklore and because of how they have the ability to shapeshift like the queen mother fae Morgan.
Yeah, I don't even know how to even like add into it because there's so much stuff, like, right? So from the video to what you and I talked about earlier before we jumped on here. So yes, shape shifting. The video was several things I have seen in the last several weeks because a lot of us in the magical community, as we're researching, we typically go into different pantheons, different gods, goddesses, and correlations and correspondences. So the Morrigan is related with shape shifting, the Fae. And one of the videos that I caught, it was a very short snippet. It was talking about covering a book. I don't remember the name of the title, but the connection with the Fae goes out into Europe and in Ireland. So the Morrigan Celtic culture, you're going to have it out in Ireland. It's very much associated with the Fae. They also call them the She. So there has been reports of, or a story of someone seeing a horse running out somewhere and shape shifting into a beautiful woman. I was telling Omar when I was listening to that in the video, I'm like, dude, that's like one of the Morrigan's forms. That's Maka. That's how I see her.
Mhm.
And so I was telling him my theory because what I find to be the Fae or the She or the fairies, I associate them with butterflies or dragonflies. Some people can associate them with unicorns, gnomes, which is what Omar was talking about his experience. Dragons is another one too. There's a lot of people who do work with dragons. But also this is where we're going to go down like a big rabbit hole today with our theories, I think.
Mhm.
Because everybody knows I work with angels, and it's kind of like everybody knows it's like a bomb went off up in here. Like there's just stuff that's just processing. There's just brain splatter. I'm just like picking up the pieces. So but just like let me clean it up real quick. So anyway, so sometimes, and this is what my theory was when I was listening to this, and this is kind of like the thought that came. For most of us who are going down a pagan path, we are going down through the old ways of, our folklore, the traditions. And so you have Christianity coming in and trying to take over and phase out pagan or Wiccan culture. Or any other culture in that may be. So the Fae can also be seen as angels, is what was referred to in the video. And I was telling Omar, like, I could really see that. So then he starts talking about, like, I've seen like a couple of videos where they spot like a Fae on camera somewhere. And granted, I'm probably thinking this is like in Europe or Ireland somewhere, and it's like you see like the outline with the wings and the body. We don't know if it's been kind of like a fake or a dupe or whatever, but I'm like, but you know what, Omar, that makes sense though, because there have been times where I'd be recording here in my room. Y'all have seen it in my kitchen when I've done my own personal videos, and I see like the orbs or the light. If you pay attention, which I do that because I'm nitpicky as hell. And I gotta know, I have to know. I'm always like the X-Files, just the truth is out there, so
Cue the
as
music.
I am cue the music. I think I could probably add that in there, but YouTube would be like, copyright claim. I'm like, fine,
Oh, come on.
fine. But anyway, but yeah, but like I'm looking at the outlines and I'm like, well, those look like angels to me. But that is a very interesting concept of that could also be fae too, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I'm still gonna refer to them as angels, whether they're angels, fae, it's all the same. But I view like the fae really being more outside.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to invite them in, I can, but I know things are gonna go missing again. But you know, like but I have set up like a little fairy garden. I was always attracted to the fae when I was younger. You and I were talking about movies. Like I think for me and my generation, it was like Fern Gully because of the rainforest and how important that it was. I loved Fern Gully. I had it on like repeat all the time. And so it's the fae people living there and they're tearing down the trees and they're trying to save the forest. And yeah. And then you have Thumbelina, and I know that there were several other ones. And then as you were talking about the gnomes, I was a big fan of the cartoon Smurfs when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, those are gnomes. They're
Mm-hmm.
just blue. And my
Mm-hmm.
dad used to always like be funny when I was younger because we had like the stink bugs and I guess he'd step on them. Again, before any of this. I was like, why is it blue? And he's like, I stepped on a Smurf.
How old? I would have been crying. Like,
I
oh my
think
God.
I think I probably did, but I was just kind of looking at him and you know, I'm trying not to be gullible and I'd look at him and be like, you're lying. He's like, but I did. He was just doing it to be funny. But
I think it's so interesting that even throughout, like, I guess in subtle ways, we've seen a lot of media production around like these magical people because again, where the fuck are we gonna grab inspiration for Thumbelina?
yeah, and even for the older audience, you know, you asked me the other day if I was a fan of True Blood. I loved True Blood, and Sookie was part of the Fae race, where she could go through those like the fairy realm, you know, and yeah, and it made her blood smell amazing to vampires. So yeah, but I love that. I love that a lot.
But even in that, like in the series, like I how they depicted the Fae as being like these like really saturated, like overly saturated with color and like golden light and like things that are just like the fruits and like when I saw those scenes, I couldn't help but think of like you know that one scene from Fantasia.
Uh, maybe remind me.
So this is I don't know what song that they're playing, but there's a scene where there's just like a fairy and they like start illuminating the flowers and things starts coming alive and things in the night and then you see like weird you know figures of like oh and then this flower turned into a fairy and then this
Yeah.
it became alive and I just couldn't help but think that like well you know that is the sort of feeling I get when I think of the Fae, but there's a lot of different like folk that like to like paint them differently. But again, like there's been so many stories that we have been told surrounding the Fae. I I only know or I have only felt that they are happy people and they just want to be left alone. They're protective. Um, they really care about the earth, the flowers, and vegetation, so to speak. And I can't help but think that you had mentioned before that, like, you know, angels. Um, a lot of people don't believe in aliens, and some people do.
Mhm.
I feel like, again, like angels are light beings
Mhm.
and I can't but feel but that the Fae are light beings, but like of the earth though,
I could see that.
of
Yeah,
like, you know, again, like they also leave the Fae also leave little crop circles.
they do with the mushrooms, which I
Mm-hmm.
find very ironic, you know, like or like, hey, I'm about to like go on a trip. It's like I could see that. And I was telling Omar my theory of the vegetation, granted, like on the lands of where it was in that culture at the time. There wasn't, I would say, because you are living off the land. It was even mentioned in the video that it was the depiction of how you viewed the Fae. So they are very busy beings. They do enjoy being outside. They like the vegetation. They love the flowers. They'd be drinking from like the flowers of teacups. You know, and that's where my association came from. It's like, well, you're planting a garden. The first thing you're going to get is butterflies. You may also get hummingbirds, anything else with wings. So maybe in the sense, the vegetation or the things that they ate might have opened or unlocked something like for the human brain for them to see into another realm. That's my theory. Okay. That's my theory. I'm not saying that it's true, but that's what I'm looking at it. It makes sense to me. But again, I'm just saying, like, I'm just pulling this out of my brain because it's got to go somewhere. But yeah.
No, but I agree with your theory because again, hence, like, I went on, like, I took some mushrooms. I never met these people before. And I was like, wait, hold on. Where are these little gnomies around me? Like, what? Hi, people. Hello. Never experienced this before.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, since they do leave little like mushroom crop circles, there must be some sort of aspect to psychedelic mushrooms that gives you a sort of access to, like, if they choose to show themselves to you, to be able to like take, you know, pull back the veil and be like, all right, you wanted to see us, or I guess we like you enough to show ourselves to you because that mushroom you took came from one of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they have a part in creating those kinds of mushrooms that allow others to access their realm, because in the end, they're so protective over like the land and over the earth and vegetation and just generally not polluting the earth, that perhaps in some form they are trying to communicate with us through, I guess, that mushroom or that form of mushroom. Because again, it takes, like, as you had mentioned previously over the phone call, that it takes a particular kind of water and dew to create those kinds of mushrooms.
Yeah, they grow in a moist environment. So there's 2 points to how I'm kind of like finding this concept with the Fae. So there's different types of waters that you can use magically in your craft. One of them is the dew water. So it's like the first fresh morning dew, you're outside. If you can get it off like blades of grass, it's kind of hard. Or you can even find them like in your flower garden, I'm sure. So a lot of the dew water you can use is for fairy magic if you're trying to call in for the Fae. Second, if you think about it, because we were talking about the mushrooms, talking about vegetations, things that grow. There was 2 things I was discussing with Omar, is that how we were justifying things of good and bad. I'm going to get to this point first. So you have a whole bunch of farmers in these big, vast, beautiful green countrysides. And so they're farming. So if it's not a good harvest for 1 year, okay, or something happens, then they would blame that as like the mischievous Fae coming in, you know, and ruining the crops. Sometimes now when you think about it, depending on the types of bacteria or things that grow in the soil, maybe it's too moist or X, Y, and Z. We know now that sometimes the different fungi comes in and can destroy vegetation in plants. That's the scientific part of it. But if you want to look at it magically, well, it's kind of like if there is a link of certain fungi or things that pop up in vegetation and it starts to like kill off what your crops are, then yeah, I could see how they were blaming the Fae on doing this. But at the same time, if things were being fruitful, then people were thinking like we're being abundantly blessed by the Fae. They are protecting us. So they were kind of looking at them as like good or bad. And so that's how I was kind of like tying in what I have known now and then what I was listening to. It makes sense to me. And then if you think about as far as plants and the mushrooms in general, a lot of us, we do magic with herbs. herbs have a spirit to them, whether they are dried or they are living. And so my practice, if I am going to use an herb, if I'm going to put it in a candle spell, put it in a jar or burn them or whatever, I am thanking in the spirit of that plant, right? So of course the Fae are going to be hanging around a life force because plants are life. And so yeah, they're going to be hanging around there and just being like, I love just hanging out here with this lovely like life force, and just and being there. And so I think that's the reason why we want to respect them, the life of the plant, number one, and number two, it also respects the Fae because that is where they live. And so yeah, it's just being environmentally conscious, I guess, which I think a lot of us, like, whether we are practicing pagans, maybe not identifying as witch, but if you do identify as a witch, we might be more inclined to do things that are like more helpful with our environment and being environmentally conscious. Because yeah, here in the US, it's very much industrial. We have skyscrapers, we have pavement. Granted, other cities it's the same, but there are places out way in Europe and in other countries that still have that green vegetation, that it's not so industrial like. And of
No,
course
yeah.
that's where they're going to be to stay,
Mhm.
so I'm trying, not that I'm perfect at it, but I'm trying. I was telling Omar, again, granted I don't know if it's the Fae or something else, but I've had rose bushes out in the front of my yard and they wouldn't grow. But the more that I've been tending to them and respecting them as a life force, I've been getting so many damn roses out in the front of my yard. So, but I mean, it looked like it just happened overnight, where they just sprung out like 8 pink roses and like 12 white. I don't know. But anyway, but yeah.
No, but like I wanted to segue into something else because you had mentioned that like you had said something really interesting and I just like popped up in my brain. You said that every plant or every single little like green, plant or just plants in general have their own life force, right?
Mm-hmm.
And have their own sort of spirit to them. Now, have you ever thought as to, well, I don't know if, I know you probably have pondered this, but maybe our viewers haven't. I understand that to be true only because, only because, um, for instance, absinthe, the green fairy.
Mm-hmm.
Absinthe is like
Sneaky little
associated.
bugger.
Mm-hmm.
I've been acquainted, maybe not with the real deal, but we have been acquainted at one point.
It's
But
gross
continue.
though. I've had some absinthe in I didn't get to try some when I was in like Europe, but like because I was not interested. It's not the best drink. It is really gross. It is very a particular kind of drink, and it's like drinking medicine. Like I don't want to do that. But I remember taking some out here in like West Hollywood 2-3 years ago, and they lit it with like the sugar cube and everything. It was magical, whatever. I took some, and yeah, no, just that one. Didn't have a single drink the rest of my night because at the same time I was being led this way, that way, this way. But I can't help but feel that like even going back to what I was talking about earlier, how I had smoked or in my backyard and I set myself up for a great experience, put on the fairy site oil and commune with them. I can't but feel that also marijuana has its own sense of like spirit, which is, I don't know what anyone defines it as. I will give my own personal sort of like definition as to what I feel towards that. But even then, like I use it for healing during the eclipses and the retrograde. But I find that once I had invoked that like green sort of smell out there, they were like right there, like, hey, what's up? You're doing that? Okay, well, you haven't done that for quite some time now. And then I started thinking about how, like, how you said that, every single herb has a different like spirit or whatever. I started thinking how like how can I sort of have a better relation to the Fae, then starting to like, I don't know, burn more like, you know, herbs outside so that I could attract them and be like, hey, like, thank you so much for giving me a present this morning, which was a blue spotted egg, which for me translated to like protection, you know. Or you had told me like, hey, interestingly enough, like that's protection. I'm like, yeah, thanks, because like I've been fucking not here. um and I just want to know, like, I guess, you know, getting to know any sort of deity or goddess, you have to also know the kind of fae that you're around as to what they like and what they don't like, because I feel like
Yeah.
they probably have preferences too.
I think they would. And Omar was telling me like where he lives, he's got a neighbor that actually does have like a fae garden. So maybe it is kind of like local. So maybe they kind of like attracted the scent, you know, as you're using your fairy side oil. They're just like,
Mhm.
hey guys, he lives here. Let's go check him out and see what he's got. Like I thought that'd be funny. But yeah, I think all of their personalities are different. And it's kind of like the same thing when we're doing any magical work. It's like, look, I'm setting boundaries just like you are with people. So you set
Mhm.
them with spirits. It's like I am only calling in the positive, the ones that are here for my eyes good. Anybody else, like any of you mofos that are beginning trying to like start some stuff, like you need to leave. So, but again, I say it a little more like just in that. Sometimes I do get a little ghetto, but
You
but
kind of have to. You have to. I
kind
mean,
of have
again,
to.
yeah.
Yeah. And you got to stand your ground, you got to be firm, and you got to show no fear. And so and I think like at times um it's the same with the fae. Again, they just like what they like. They do like the sweets, they do like the offerings. You can ask them, hey, you know, protect this home maybe from the back and the front of the house. Because if you have a garden in the front, you got one in the back of the house, granted, then yes, they're going to be kind of like patrolling the area. Um, and leaving them like little gifts. I have had like, granted, I don't know how they've been working with the weather, but I started building a little fairy garden outside. I've got like a big Texas boot and it's got flowers that grow. And we did like a little U thing and we put the flowers there. So it's kind of like this little enclosed space where the fae can just hang out.
Mhm.
And I had these little fae houses. They look like mushrooms. I had them sitting next to my Bridget altar in the kitchen. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put both those houses outside. So I don't know how they're going to be working out with the paint, with the weather and the rain. But I was like, you know what? We're going to call these your home because they got doors on them. So, but yeah, I was just like, I'm going to, you know, make it right for them to have. And then I can go out and do my own ritual and call them in and say, hey, here is an offering if you'd like to show yourselves. Positive ones only. Again, they're going to be tricksters. They love to play. You can't stop them from doing that. But I have to keep constantly working with them and giving them gifts, you know, just to kind of build that connection. Because, and it's like the same thing with the spirit or any other deity. It's like once you stop, it's like, okay, so why should I stick around here for? You're not going to work with me if you ain't going to give me a present. Like,
Mhm.
you know, like I get
Mhm.
it. I get it. It's like, why should I stay?
No, no, yeah. I mean, again, if I could attach a sort of like zodiac sign to them, it's very Gemini nature. It speaks Gemini nature to me of like, oh, you wanted to play, but you're not going to play with me?
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
But I do also think it's kind of like the upkeep as far as their home goes to and respecting it and saying good morning, leaving the little gifts. You talked about you know, you left like a key. Again, they're the most popular in their lore, milk and honey. That's what I've used. Um, you know, they like shiny things. They do like shiny things. So yeah. So just be careful.
There was this other theory that we had spoken about, and how I feel like perhaps Lewis Carroll was inspired by the Fae to write, you know, certain segments in his book of Alice in Wonderland, because the way I see it is that, like, you know, Alice went through a portal and she didn't know what she was doing, but she got lost. And eventually she started talking to the flowers, started talking to like Mad Hatter, the Mad Hare, kooky, crazy, like, you know, interesting sort of people. And then I couldn't help but think that, like, well, is this a story? Is this really a story of someone's experience down a psychedelic trip, or is this a story behind the um opening up of the channels and going through those portals into this fey land because there's a cat? And the way I see it, there's a lot of stray cats out there just hanging out, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
they've seen things, and they're like, you know, again, they appear when they want to, they kind of come back if they choose to, but they also, I feel like, have a connection to the fae as much as you know, any other like small pet would, or like animal would, because again, they're in the middle of the grass, they're laying out here, they're hiding, they're having activity, they're doing things. So I can't but feel that like this story was like inspired by the fae, because who talks to flowers? Also,
We
Alice
do.
clearly had like a moment where she was having a tea party and she was communing. She ate the food, she was there, but eventually they got sick and tired of her because she was so ignorant as to like the land, so to speak, that they kind of took her into a wrong direction where she was like scared and she was like, I'm so lost right now. Everything is so confusing. I don't know what this place is.